Okay, so Sylvan, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Second take.
Yeah.
So we're just doing a series called Love, Life, Grief and Coffee. So meeting some special guests and talking about obviously your achievements and what you've done, but also loss, because loss happens to everyone. It's something that a lot of people aren't willing to talk about. So obviously, as a successful sportsman, it's great that you are willing to talk about, loss and grief and the things that happen as part of being a professional. So for you, I mean, you started football really young and you were playing for Cambridge, and then you got picked up by Man United,
Yeah.
weren't you?
Yeah, that was a fantastic start for me. I sort of went on trial when I came out of secondary school. But while I was still in secondary school, actually, I went up there for 2 weeks on a trial, got accepted, finished my schooling, and then pretty much moved up there in the summer.
Wow. So at 16, you left home.
Yeah, 15, 16, left home, moved in with a family up there, what they call digs, that look after young kids. There was sort of two or three of us living there at the time. And it really was just a massive transition. Just, my life had really just changed in a short spell of time, and I was living away from home and with a complete new family and a new career to sort of look forward to at a very young age.
So I would imagine there was a bit of conflict because you're really excited about new opportunities and playing for Manchester United, and yet you've left home.
Yeah.
So what are the coping strategies as a young lad at those
I
ages?
was excited, to be fair. At that age, I was really excited. I was sort of ready for that challenge of moving and trying to pursue a career in football. I always enjoyed playing football. I was always encouraged to play football. I never took it too seriously until that point. So it was one of excitement, but I wasn't really thinking too deeply about any other effects. Really, I was just excited to get going, get playing, meet new people, and look forward to that sort of challenge. Yeah.
Okay, so from Man United, you then went to
Plymouth.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what was the transition? So presumably you got comfortable being in Manchester
Yeah.
and then quite happy with the life that was going on there.
I think the transition from Manchester to Plymouth was a lot different. First of all, I didn't know where Plymouth was, so my geography skills weren't great. But I was joining a first team more so than a youth team. I'd built up loads of friends in Manchester. The family that looked after me were like my second parents. Then I was moving to Plymouth to pretty much live by myself and sort of fend for myself, cook for myself, clean for myself, wash my own clothes. I was 18, so I was still reasonably young. And my parents brought me up well in terms of I was able to do a lot for myself, but it was still my first experience of sort of living by myself, doing my own food shopping and all those types of things that come with that age range. So I did initially for the first a year. I found that difficult. Yeah.
So I think you mentioned that you had someone come and live with you.
Yeah. So originally I moved down there by myself, and then I've got a younger brother. There's a year between us. We were really close growing up. And funny enough, he played up an age group with me throughout our whole sort of younger days. And then I got taken on and he didn't really. And he sort of become despondent with football and stuff like that. So when I did move to Plymouth, it was an opportunity to bring him with me really and get close again because we'd lost that bond at the time I'd been in Manchester because I was away from him for the first time. And he came and lived with me. And then a good friend of mine, Dan, later on, who was having some problems himself, some personal problems, he came and lived with me as well. And it was good to have familiar faces around, and that helped me settle, and helped me sort of build into that independent lifestyle. Yeah.
So how long did you spend?
I was there for 18 months.
Okay, and then from there, where did you?
That's when I came to Wolves. Moved to Wolverhampton. Yeah. And,
well, you were obviously vital in getting them up to the Premier League, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that was a massive high.
Yeah, once I came to Wolves, it really worked out. It really worked out well for me.
Is that the best?
Yeah, it's the best. It's probably where I'm best known for my time at Wolves. It just sort of hit the ground running, scored a load of goals, settled really quickly, and yeah, it was just a whirlwind really. It just went. There were spells where it didn't go so well, but generally, my 5 or 6 years that I was there will be remembered quite fondly. Yeah.
instrumental as well in getting lots of family
That's
around.
right. Yeah. So yeah, it was a fantastic time in my life. Really, it was at those ages. I was 20, 21, 19 or 20 when I signed for Wolves, and then the years just fly by, season by
Yeah.
season, and success after success, and meeting new people all the time, and just sort of just living a really surreal lifestyle.
I
You
know. I
know,
think you mentioned it was like
um,
being wrapped up in cotton wool at
yeah, you're in a
first. It's
bubble.
like,
You're in
yeah,
a bubble, and I've only truly realised that in the last few years when you step outside of it that you're in a bubble, and it's a bubble of football and all that brings. You create a persona that people see on the pitch, which is generally different to who you
yeah,
are
of
in
course.
person when people meet you in person, and you carry that. It becomes normal. It's almost like actors. I've listened to actors speak when they've got to
Yeah,
get ready for a role, and how it's hard to sort of detach themselves from that role when they've worked on it for years. And I think it's the same. It's the same as football. You build up a persona that the fans almost put on you, and then
yeah.
you live that. And sometimes it's not your truth. And
No, of course.
I think for me, I wasn't too different to who I am, but I was very sort of closed on the pitch. It was my personal life was separate to what I did on the pitch. I never
Okay.
really wanted the two to mix, and I was quite adamant about that. I never used to like doing a lot of interviews or talk about my personal life, not because there was anything wrong with it. I just felt like judge me on what I do on the pitch. This
Yeah,
is what
yeah,
this doesn't necessarily define who I am being a footballer.
yeah. No, absolutely.
There's so much more to me than just the
Yeah, of
tag
course.
footballer, and yeah, so that was why I was a bit like that for a long time actually.
Okay, well, it makes sense that you would want to keep those two separate, and that your private life's your private life, and when you're on the pitch, I mean, you only have to go to a game and you see that the players get shouted at, and there's
Yeah,
all of that kind of stuff.
yeah, it's an opportunity for people to vent their
Yeah.
frustrations. That's what I find at football grounds. You find all
How do you
types of
cope with
people.
that?
It's
How do you
I
cope
don't
with
I don't
that?
listen to it to be fair, and I
Really?
feel like the bigger stadiums you play in, the less you hear it. To be honest, because you're so channeled into what you're
Yeah.
doing. I've found when I've played at smaller stadiums later on in my career, you hear more and it feels more
Okay.
personal. But when I was playing in the bigger stadiums and stuff, I switched off
You
completely.
just
I was
know
too
that it's
focused and I was in
yeah.
that sort of cauldron and just come to perform and go home and chill.
Oh God, don't blame
Yeah.
me. So how do you find so obviously you're in this bubble, and then you go and then there's the adulation and kind of the hero worship, especially where you've done so much for a team like Wolves. And then you've got the camaraderie of all the teammates and all the lads in the change room, the manager. How do you then leave that and then just go home to family life? I mean, how hard is it to transition from
It's
one
very
to the
difficult.
other?
It's very difficult, and I think it's quite common in football with sort of the players' partners and their family. They sort of take the brunt of a lot of what's
Yeah,
going on the pitch because you sort of come home, you try and normalise yourself, but generally, if your football's going well, your life's going well,
yeah.
and if your football's not, then your family suffers, and that's generally
Okay.
the way it goes. It's very hard to separate the two because it's a big part of everyone's
Yeah,
life. And if one day I go into training and I've got to move football clubs for whatever reason, then it's packing up the whole house and you've all got to go together and you've all got to buy into it and try and make it work because it's so important that your family life is sort of settled
yeah, of
and
course.
consistent and it helps obviously your performance on the
Yeah,
pitch. So it's a very selfish sport really in that respect because everything's driven to my
yeah,
performance, the player's
yeah,
performance, and the whole family sort of have to fall in sync with that and buy into it because that's what we're trying to create for
yeah,
our family, a greater opportunity
yeah,
later in life for our families and stuff. So it is difficult, and I didn't truly grasp that until later on as well because you're just stuck in that performance
yeah,
mentality every day being judged, whether it's your weight, whether it's your performance on the pitch, whether it's your body fats, whether it's what you're eating. You're just being judged every single day of your life, and to sort of normalize that takes time.
yeah.
And a lot of people do very quickly, and that's the people that go the highest do normalize that quite quickly and perform.
So it really is this kind of this mental ascent to it, if you like, and to
Yeah,
just being able to. Oh,
yeah. You've just got to attach yourself to it and make it become your reality. That I'm an athlete. I'll be
yeah,
judged every day. I want to be the best I can. I want to perform every day, and I want to go as high and as far as I can and create a legacy. And then when it's all said and done, I can sort of settle down and live this cushy family life. But there's the actual part of it happening that you can't ever, you can't retrace and start again. So all that ups and downs, highs and lows that your whole family have to go through, it sticks. And 10 years later, it can have a detrimental effect.
No, of course, because you can't. You're trying to flip back into that, and then suddenly you're expecting everything to be normal, and it's not. And yeah, no, it must be really, really, really hard. And what about injuries? So you've just broken your leg for the third time.
Yeah, third time. So I suffered. When I first went. I went to Manchester United when I was younger, and I was doing really well. Doing really well in the reserve, set up the youth teams, and then I broke my leg. That was the first time I broke my leg, and that was a major setback because I was sort of en route to make my first team debut there, which is massive, and then had that setback with my leg, and sort of came back from that. It was a learning curve. Came back from that strong. I was still young, so I was able to recover quick. My bone healed really quick, and I got back from it fairly quickly, and was still able to make my debut after that, which was a good achievement. And then sort of went on, had no real problems with my leg, although I wasn't the same player because my body was still reacting differently. I was able to adapt and have a career after that. And then around 2013, the same injury, again impact tackle, broke my leg, and that for me was the beginning of the end really of my career. I tried to come back from that, but I was never truly the same. So that was
wanting to play football.
Yeah. Well, with the physio now, it's just so much better, and it does. When you say you broke your leg, it does sound a lot worse than it is. There's different types of breaks. You can get your tibia and your fibula, where that's a really, really, really bad injury. Mine was more the fibula, so it's the smaller, less weight-bearing bone, and you can get back from it within 4 months. So it's not as bad as it sounds, but it's still an injury that affects the way you move and how mobile you are, how effective you are. And I really felt that after the second time I did it, and that really, really slowed me down. I was out of the game for over 12 months and out of contract at Wolves, and found it difficult to get back in and get a rhythm again. That was sort of the start of my professional decline.
Okay. And what happens, like, psychologically and mentally when you have an injury? So you're talking about this bubble and then the camaraderie of all the teammates, and then so you have an injury. Presumably you're not at the training, and you're not. Is that what happens? And then
Well, you're still at the training ground, but you're more with the physio and with the medical staff and focusing on getting yourself fit. You'll have time out because you're not able to train. So you're around the environment, but you don't necessarily feel a huge part of it like maybe I did before. But you're still around the environment. Yeah.
But how did you find that impacted you in any way? Or did you got
I built up a mental resistance. I'm quite mentally strong myself anyway, and have been since I was a kid. So I built up that resistance when I got injured. It does have an effect. You do sort of, you do feel it not being a part of it, maybe not being able to contribute on the pitch. But I never really let it get me too down. The second time it happened, because I'd come back from it before. I think that helped me. I think I believed in the staff as well, that they were going to get me back playing again, and so it didn't initially affect me. It was probably later on when I was back fit and realised that my body's not the same. But through the actual process of getting fit, I wasn't aware of it at that point. So I was sort of like, well, I've done this before, I can do it again. And it probably wasn't until I was fit that I truly realised that no, my body's not reacting the same. I'm not the same player. I can't move the same. I can't do the same things on the pitch. And that was probably the hardest part, to accept that. I think.
So how did you cope with that? I mean, what did you do to kind of keep yourself going, or what were you up against there? How did you move beyond that? Because obviously it's a normal and natural reaction, is to feel the pain of, oh my God, I'm changing, and got to accept that. But how did you cope?
But I think for me, I've had a very strong family network since I was a kid, and that's a massive thing. I'm close to my dad, my mum. I've got good friends, good people around me as well, and I think that's a massive help.
Okay.
because you can kind of take your mind away from that and focus on other aspects of life which are important. And then you're not constantly thinking about, right, I've got to be back to the level I was in football. This is who people know me as. I'm a footballer, and if I don't play football, then what life have I got? So and I think what was good for me is I never defined myself as a footballer. I think it just happened by accident, really. By separating my personal life and my football life, people were only able to judge me as a footballer, not necessarily this is me as a person. I didn't lay myself out there like that. So I was able to sort of deal with it internally as well as, well, football doesn't define me. There's so much more to me and so many more things that I enjoy. Let me sort of get my brain into that while I'm having this time away from football. So I think a mixture of family, I think a mixture of just sort of my upbringing, my own sort of hard-headedness and my appetite to be interested in other things away from football helped me. I think if I was a sort of kid who was just football, it would have had a bigger effect, even though it still had an effect.
Yeah, no, of course. So did you learn early on to have other things in your life, or was that something that you implemented whilst playing?
It happened. It just happened. It wasn't something I consciously did. In school, I played rugby, basketball, football. I enjoyed school. I was good in my lessons. I liked reading, writing. I listened in class. I always listened to my dad when he was giving me advice. So I wasn't just a kid with a football from the age of 2, and that was all I wanted to do. There was always other interests. And then as I've grown, meeting different people within football, traveling the world, I started to realize that I enjoy other things. I enjoy other cultures. I enjoy researching, reading. I enjoy how other people map out a career for themselves away from football. So those things just helped me, but I never consciously did it. I sort of fell into it, and my brain was just becoming intrigued by the way other people operated because I knew the way that footballers operated, and I knew it was very singular. And I just I just find people interesting. Yeah, so
That's great.
yeah.
So what would you say your biggest triumph has been on the pitch as in your career? What would you say your biggest triumph has been?
I've got a couple. First one was coming back from my broken leg to make my debut for Manchester United, which is huge. Under a great manager, Sir Alex Ferguson. And then I think the second was obviously helping Wolves to get promoted to the Premier League. That was definitely the between the two of those were massive and really stick out in my career.
And then on the flip side of that, what would you say was your biggest loss, your biggest kind of heartbreak to
Professionally?
Yeah.
Injury, really. I think injury and the timing of the injury. Injury is always hard, but to sort of have such a good run at Wolves and then break my leg at a time where the club was struggling and ended up going down to League One, and I was in the last year of my contract, and it was the compound effect, like it all sort of like that domino effect. It all just sort of collapsed all at once, and then I was sort of out of contract, injured, and not really knowing what the future held, but still optimistic. But still that uncertainty. Really, for the first time in my career, that was where I had sort of had that uncertainty. Times before that, I had a contract and I had years on my contract, and you could sort of work towards something. But this was the first time I didn't necessarily have a contract in front of me, and I was injured, and I had to go sort of 8 or 9 months without being paid and just sort of get myself fit and work out the next stage of my life and career. Yeah. So
this is a side of football that people that often don't realise when they're looking at all this. With the Championship and the Premiership players, they just don't realise.
No.
Perhaps not Premiership, but obviously Championship is a different game, isn't it? In terms of with contracts and.
It's all the levels really. It happens at all levels, just on different scales. But I think people always remember the sort of highlights, but there's only so many highlights in a 15-year career. There's a lot of there's a lot of heartache as well.
Yeah,
There's not many
absolutely.
that just have a clean run
No.
and it goes really well for them. There's always a sad story or a hardship somewhere that drives these top players to become top players. So it's never
Do you
plain
think
sailing.
that it's ultimately grief, heartbreak, and loss that give people that
Yeah,
drive
the
to
best, yeah. The
the
elite minds and the elite people tend to come through a lot of hardship to become the very best. And I've found that with meeting people that are elite sports people and playing with them, playing alongside them, the mentality is that nothing can really hold them back. They've got this real drive, real determination, and it comes from hardship. You find the ones that have it plain sailing for long periods of time and then get some hardship, struggle. I think the ones that have it early on tend to go on to be the best. That's what I've found from
absolutely.
my
It's
experience.
really interesting because there's been a lot of research recently about kids as well and how parents are kind of mollycoddling their kids too much, which is not teaching them how to overcome hardship when they're young, so that
Yeah,
when they get to be older. So it's a similar
yeah,
thing,
yeah,
isn't it, in a
yeah.
way?
You can see that. Um, I sort of reference it into football because that's the field that I
Yeah,
understand. But you do see that I've got kids of my own, and you do see parents trying to be overprotective of their kids, which I understand. But
of course.
ultimately, they've got to fall over to understand what it
Yeah.
feels like.
Mhm.
And it happens with I've got a young son. He's quite clumsy, but sometimes you've got to let him make those little mistakes of when I'm telling him to stop running and he doesn't listen to me and he falls over, then he realizes why I've told him to stop running. But if I just stop him from running altogether, he
Yeah,
never truly knows what it feels like to graze
exactly.
his knee, which I sort of bring that into football, and
Yeah.
it's the same. You have to know what it feels like to fail before you can succeed.
Mm.
And I think, like I said, the best people that I've met have failed a lot,
Mm.
but you only have to succeed once. And that's what people remember, don't they?
Brilliant, absolutely
So, yeah,
brilliant. Yeah, no,
yeah,
absolutely. Great. Thanks so much for
cool.
chatting and
No
for
worries at all.
sharing your insights. And yeah, thanks a lot,
It's cool.
Sylvan.
No worries.
All right.
Thanks.